What's going on, everybody? Edison T. Crux here, bringing you another how to make a Pokemon Nuzlocke tutorial. Now, in this video, I'm going to be showing you how to capture your gameplay footage using Open Broadcast Software, or OBS as it's abbreviated to. Now, obviously, this is very important for doing a Nuzlocke because you got to record the gameplay footage somehow, right? And I'm going to show you how to use this program, which is a good one for doing that. Now, why use OBS for recording your Nuzlocke? A couple of good reasons. For one, it's free. It's open source. It's free, which is really nice. If you obviously are on a budget, if you're just starting out, then OBS is a great program to get started on. Another great advantage of OBS is that it's cross-platform, at least the studio version of it, which is what we're using here today, is cross-platform. So it will work, this roughly the same will work on Windows, Linux, or Mac. So that's another great reason to use OBS. Another thing that's nice about it is you can use the same program set up differently for live streaming or for local recording, for like doing, like, say, a video on YouTube. So today we're not going to be talking about live stream, not worrying about that. We're going to worry about how to set things up to do really good quality, at least best that you can do, quality of video for your Nuzlocke. So let's get started. I'm going to remove my face here. I just thought it'd be cool for the intro. I'm going to remove. Yes. So first things first, we're going to be setting up a profile. Now, if you don't know what a profile is, it's kind of like a set of settings. You see down here, we're about to go and fiddle with a bunch of settings in the game, or in the program. And profiles are ways to save different sets of settings, in case you, say, need one for high-resolution local recording and one for live streaming. We're going to do this for local that's not how you spell, local recording. Now, that way you can easily switch between the two. Super handy if you use this for live streaming also. So you're going to want to go click down there and click on Settings. I'm going to make this a little smaller so you can easily see it. And this general should be about fine. Not really a big deal. Stream, if you're streaming, you're going to want to deal with that, but we're not worrying about that right now. Where you want to go is Output. Now, there's a couple modes. You want to switch this from Output mode Simple to Advanced, because we're going to do quite a bit of tinkering here. Now, this first tab here is going to be streaming. Again, we're not worrying about streaming right now, so let's just go to recording. Now, output type, let's do, I think standard should be fine. Now, one thing that I want to discuss with you when it comes to the recording path, this is, of course, where the outputted video will go when you record. And I want to discuss something really quick, a trick that I learned. I hit a point at one point where I was getting just an unusual amount of lag while playing. And a trick I found is if you set the recording path, where it records to a different hard drive than what the game itself is being played from, then a lot of times you'll find better performance. So what that means is, in my case, I have an external hard drive that I have it record to, and I'm running the game out of my main hard drive. So if you have an external hard drive with any amount of storage space on it, I actually recommend outputting it to that. At least experiment. The thing you're going to want to keep in mind with all of this is everyone's situation is going to be a little bit different. Everyone's going to have slightly different needs. And your computer and exactly what game you're playing, what kind of, what it's running on, is it an emulator, is it just a PC game? Everyone's needs are going to be a little bit different. So there's going to be a little trial and error, but this should at least get you on the right track. So experiment with using your output path to an external hard drive. That should be fine. Recording format, I'd recommend MP4 just because one of the programs that I like to use for editing handles MP4s nicely. Audio track 1, or let's try 2. Some formats don't support it, but I'm pretty sure MP4 does, so that should be fine. Encoder, we're going to use times 264. That's going to give us a couple more options down here, which we will be playing with. Rescale output. Now, this, you're going to want to make sure that this is whatever your output format's going to be. Now, I've got it set right now to 1280 by 720. That's going to make a 720p video, which, honestly, if you're just getting started on YouTube and doing Nuzlockes, then that's probably as high resolution as you really need to worry about. Obviously, bigger is better, but If you don't have the greatest computer for it, then this is just fine. You don't have to worry about that. So set that up. Now that might currently be a higher resolution. My screen right now is set to that. So that's why it defaults to that. I would set that to this if it's anything higher than that, though. Okay, moving on down here. Rate control, you're going to want to have that be at CBR. Bitrate. Now, you're going to want to experiment with bitrate. That's one of those things that, depending on what your computer is capable of doing, you'll want to move this up. Lower will run smoother on your computer if it's not as good a computer. Higher, it's going to be a little bit better quality. So mine usually can handle 2500 just fine. You might be able to do more. I might even be able to do more. But keep that in mind that if you're running into laggy issues, this is one thing to experiment with dropping a little bit. Use custom buffer size. You can actually drop the buffer to 0 if you're doing a local recording. That helps a little bit for that. Now, this is another one that you're going to want to experiment with depending on your computer. CPU usage preset. The higher this is, the easier, see this is higher equals less CPU. That means the higher this is, it's going to be easier on your computer, but a little bit lower quality. Now, honestly, you can do ultra fast, and it will still look just fine. I would always favor having your gameplay footage run smoother, which is to say without lag or stuttering in the video, as opposed to being higher quality. If you're going to sacrifice somewhere, I'd rather you have slightly lower quality videos as opposed to laggy videos. So try ultra fast. If you can do super fast or very fast, then cool. But ultra fast probably be just fine. Another thing that's important, particularly if you're going to follow the tutorial I'll be doing on Lightworks for video editing, is do not have variable frame rate. You're going to want it to be a static, consistent frame rate. There you go. Now, I don't know a lot about audio types of things, so I'm not going to give a lot of advice on that. This default stuff works okay. If you're more of an audio junkie, then you might know how to tweak this a little bit to your liking. But I find the default is just fine for my knowledge of audio. So the next thing you want to click over here is on video. Again, you're going to get that same base canvas resolution and output scaled. Make sure this is whatever your screen resolution is that you're playing on. And then this is the downscaled resolution. Again, 720 or 1280 by 720 should be good. Downscale filter. This is another area that you can adjust depending on your computer and your needs. I find bilinear is fastest but blurry of scaling. Still looks acceptable. It still looks acceptable, particularly if your computer is not the grandest thing in the world, but you want to be doing videos. This is probably just fine for you. Common frame per second values. 30 frames per second is good. It's good. 60 obviously is beautiful, but I'm assuming that you probably don't have the most powerhouse of computer, or you're just not there yet. So 30 is just fine. You don't have to try and push it to 60. Honestly, if you're gonna try and adjust something, I would rather you adjust downscale filtering or some of these output settings as opposed to trying to get a higher frame rate. So just keep that at 30, you'll be fine. And that should be good as far as settings go. If you want, you can do hotkeys for starting recording and stopping recording. That's particularly useful for streaming, not really as big a deal for this. And none of this is too particularly important for this. So you should be set to go. Hit apply, or just OK, or both, like I did. And your settings for recording should be set. Now, the next thing you want to do is set up your scenes. Now, this can be a little weird if you're not used to OBS. So this is a scene. It starts out, it loads you up with a basic scene, and then your sources. What a scene is a collection of video inputs here. This is like your screen. Right now there's nothing on there, so we're going to put something on there down in the sources. You can either hit this plus or right-click add. They do the same thing. This just kind of saves a step, I guess. And you're going to want to pick your input source. Now, I want this. I'm just right now using my 3ds Capture for this example. A lot of you might be using, say, an emulator if you're doing a Nuzlocke, Or if you're doing some other kind of gameplay footage, you might have, like, I don't know, Minecraft, and it's on your computer. Whatever. So there's a couple of different things you can do, and which one you do is going to depend on, honestly, on the game. It varies a little bit. The ideal one you're going to want to use for gameplay is game capture. So click that. It's going to say create new, add existing. You're going to want to create new. Hit OK. And capture any full screen application. If you're doing a full screen thing, like Minecraft or some other PC game, then yeah. Otherwise, I'm going to uncheck that. The window is this 3DS capture window. See? There it is. This is fine. For scaling, these should be all fine. Capture cursor. I don't want it to capture cursor on this because I don't want you to see my cursor if I move it over there. So that is fine. Now you see what that does is that now on your screen, this is your scene, and on that scene there are the sources. This is now one source. And you can freely move this around, grab an edge and expand it, and adjust it like so. Super easy, very straightforward on that. And that's that, actually. Now, if you're just recording the gameplay and, say, a single screen, and you're not doing a webcam, you're pretty much good to go. The one thing you will want to check is your audio over here. Now, this is set as my microphone auxiliary, and this is desktop. This just kind of went in by default. We're going to want to make sure that we have the right kind of audio going on here. So again, on our add, there is audio input capture. Create new, just like before. And default, there's my microphone. That's my microphone, actually. And then there's the stereo mix, which I believe is going to be the other computer volume. Now you'll notice under audio capture input, one of these is going to be the gameplay, just the way it's set up for me. Again, you will have to experiment in your situation to see what it is, because like with this, for my 3DS capture, it comes in through one way, so it might be a different kind of thing. Experiment a little bit, do a test recording, just start a recording, hit record, play a little, then stop, to find out what it is, because different games and such will run it a little bit differently. Now, I said game capture is the ideal input source for this. Sometimes it doesn't recognize that game capture thing. And also, like, say, on Linux, sometimes that game capture is just not an option there. So I'm just going to real quick show you two other ways you can do the same result. You can do add and then window capture. Now, this is kind of what you would expect, is you pick one of the windows that you have open, and that's the one. Again, I don't want to capture cursor, and there we go. Same basic thing. A lot of times, running it on game capture captures it a little bit smoother. So if it works, that's probably the first one you should try. Sometimes it doesn't work as well, though. For some, say, emulators or some, like I know Minecraft ran into issues for me on window capture, or on gameplay capture, so I had to do other options. So this is the second way you could do it. The other way, if both of those are giving you trouble, which sometimes in some circumstances it will, is add display capture, I believe. I don't have to use this often, but it's the infinity thing. It's exactly what you would think, and it is going to capture your whole computer display. I'm not going to use this one right now. But then what you would do is you'd record this, and then later when editing, you can cut it down to just the part that you need. That's a last resort. Don't use that unless the other two don't work. Since game capture is working for me, I'm going to go with that, because that is the ideal. So pick my game, remove capture cursor, scale this how I want, and I'm not going to worry about it right now because you won't be able to really see it, but you'd want to test out with your audio input capture, possibly even audio output. Let me just double check on that. Say I'm not as talented. Yeah, in some instances you might need to capture what's coming out the speaker. That might even be what's going on here. Yeah, that I believe, that little bit of blipping there might be, I haven't double checked, but that might be the menu screen in my 3DS there. So experiment with that to get that going. And again, speaking of audio, you can set your audio input for, let's say, your microphone. And then we have this here. Now both of these are, just due to the way my computer does it, it's capturing my voice here as well as here. It's not really ideal. You're going to want to figure out what the situation is in your computer. But what I would recommend is when you find where the gameplay audio is coming in versus your voice, experiment a little bit with playing around with the volume, because you don't want the gameplay volume to be too loud that it overwhelms your voice, but you also don't want it to be so quiet that no one can hear it. So that's something you're just going to want to experiment with, is play around with the audio levels and all that stuff. Cool. Now, if you're doing no webcam, then you're good to go. This should be all you need to do. Hit record, and you're ready to start playing. If you do want to add a webcam, there's a couple different things you can do. You can either record it separate with, say, a different webcam program. My webcam I have is the Logitech webcam. It came with webcam software, and I oftentimes do that. You then have to synchronize the two video footages in editing later, which can be a bit of a hassle. So, if your computer can handle it, you can try add another source in your scene and do video capture device. That's going to be for things like webcams. That's actually what I had going at the beginning. See, Logitech webcam. Hi, I'm back. You can configure a few things, resolution, frames per second, all that kind of stuff. This all should be good. Capture audio. Yep, that should be fine. You could even capture a custom audio device and have it be that. But we'll see. Now it appears that it may have frozen. That does happen. I will warn you that OBS is not a 100% always super stable program. Sometimes it chokes, and sometimes it gets overloaded. That's just part of the nature of it being a free, constantly worked on software. So that's kind of what you get with it. But if you learn it, you can get it to work nice for you and get some really good videos. Now, what I recommend doing is, if you're going to have a webcam, which I do in some of mine, set up something like this here. So you see you got the gameplay here, got the webcam here. Now, you could put an overlay on top of this right now. And then that would be your final thing. The reason I wouldn't recommend that is you can't do as much fancy stuff in editing later. So say if you have a layout, you could right now, you could do another source, add image, and then over on top of this, put your really fancy Nuzlocke layout, right? The problem with that, though, is you can't as easily, quickly, while in the middle of the video, make changes to that layout. You can do it, but it's a little bit clunkier. So I would rather you record the raw footage like this, just as it is, and then when you're editing, when I'll show you in another tutorial later how to use Lightworks as one video editing software, we can then splice this top screen, splice this bottom screen, move them where they need to go, move this to where it needs to go. But this is still going to be really easy because you only have one video source here. So that, honestly, is it. Like I've said from the beginning, a lot of this really does have to do with your specific computer and gaming setup. So experiment around, play with it, but this should get you started with something, which is cool. One more thing I want to touch on briefly is when you get a scene set up how you like it, you can go up to Scene Collection and say New or Save or whatever, just like we did with profiles. See how we have a local recording? You can also set up, say, a Heart Gold Nuzlocke scene collection. And you can switch between all of these. That way, if you have different needs for different games, you can easily switch between them. So, anyways, I hope this has been super helpful for all of you. If this tutorial has helped you in any way or given you some ideas, please hit that like button so I know that this was helpful. And maybe even leave a comment letting me know how it was going, or if you have any questions about OBS. I'm obviously not the absolute expert on it, but I've been able to make it usually do what I need. So, good luck with recording all of your Nuzlocke videos, everybody. And I look forward to bringing you more tutorials in the future. Catch you later, everybody.